mentioned the potential legality of a law that would prevent Benjamin Netanyahu from forming government. So here we have in studio with us YEHUDA SHAFFER. He was a deputy state attorney for financial crime in the Israeli Ministry of Justice. Good evening. Explain to us, millions of Israelis just voted for Benjamin Netanyahu, presumably to be prime minister. Can a law be passed that would prevent him from becoming the prime minister?
Well, we are in the midst of a political, legal crisis. And in crisis time, people get innovative, especially lawyers and legislators. Israel is a parliamentary system. We follow the British heritage of no constitution and the supremacy of parliament. Parliament can do no wrong, and parliament can legislate anything. This is a serious question, and it has not been addressed yet, because even though we are the third election, this is the third election, it's the first time that there's an election after indictment.
Right.
And there's three bodies that might make it, that are competent to make the decision here. One is the president, who might decide, who has the discretion, might decide on his own discretion that Netanyahu is not fit because he's indicted. The second body that might decide is the Supreme Court.
Right.
And there's petitions already beginning. The Supreme Court rejected one petition today, but because it's too early. But next week and the week after, this will be discussed. And the third body that might take a stand on this is Parliament. And maybe it's the most fit.
So Parliament in the next few weeks, because we know
I'll explain the procedure in a minute. I just want to say, we are in the middle of a crisis, and there seems to be nobody who can form a government. But there's sound majority of 62 members out of 120 that believe that Netanyahu cannot be prime minister because of his indictment. So that's the only thing that 62 members of parliament can agree on.
Right, because they can't form a government because the Israeli Arab parties won't join.
But on this principle, they can agree. Now, as far as the procedures are not simple at all. We need to, the formal results will have to be announced. Then there's an issue of who will be chairman of Knesset. If the current chairman of Knesset will remain, he will not promote this.
Right, because he's a member of Netanyahu's Likud
So they'll have to change the chairman of Knesset.
That's the first step.
They'll have to set up the committees. They'll have to go through the legislative process. And there's another small procedural problem, is that according to the current Knesset procedures, it's not possible to promote such laws which are not presented to the parliament by government during transition periods.
Okay.
So that will have to be amended as well. But there is
they'll have to amend that law to present
it's not
the
a law.
law?
It's the amendment, the inner procedures of the parliament.
Okay.
But frankly speaking, in our parliamentary system, parliament can do anything, and parliament is the people. And if there's a majority in the parliament that wants to do something, it will do it. Now, there's a paradox here, a really serious paradox, because the question is, once Parliament passes this law, will there be judicial review by the Supreme Court of this law? And there will probably be a petition against it. Now, the paradox is that the right-wing parties and Netanyahu have been criticizing the court for exercising judicial review, claiming that we have no constitution and no clear laws enabling this, etc., etc. At the end of the day, they might be the ones seeking judicial review, and maybe the court will even grant judicial review, because there are there's many criticisms that can be said about this kind of law being personal law or post factum, etc., etc.
Let's pick out one of them in particular. That would be retroactive, meaning Prime Minister Netanyahu is already in the prime minister's seat, maybe acting or interim. So can a law like this apply to him while he's actually in the prime minister's office?
Well, that would be the claim. The answer to that would be that the parliament is a new parliament, and it was just elected. It represents the people, and it wishes to set the standard. So this will be a very tough call to make. But the interesting part is that in a parliamentary system today, most parliamentary systems in the world, if not all of them, there is a procedure for the judicial review. In Israel, we don't have a formal constitution, and therefore the minority hurt by a decision of the majority doesn't always have where to go to. This will be an interesting case where people criticizing judicial review, criticizing the court, will actually need the court maybe to grant them help. Once such a law is passed by 62 parliament members, it's going to be a very, very interesting.
It would, and I should mention, you, it's outside your legal purview. Already, the Likud party and some of its supporters are promising protests in the street if this happens, because they say it goes against their democratic right. They voted for Benjamin Netanyahu, expecting he would be prime minister?
Okay, but look, we are a democracy, and protests are more than welcome. There is something a little bit, I would like to criticize a little bit.
Briefly, please.
The subtext of that is that the majority of 62 might not be legitimate. And the subtext of that might be because it leans on Arab members of parliament. I think this is totally unacceptable.
Right,
Israel is a democracy, and if there's a majority to pass a law in the Knesset, whether relying on Jewish or Arab members of parliament, it will be law.
It will be law, but there will, like I said, there will be, unfortunately,
yes,
there will be certainly protests, demonstrations.
Are part of democracy.
Part of democracy too, Yehuda, as long as they're peaceful.
Yes.
Yehuda Shaffer, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Here on The Rundown.